Not sure. This is always a thing going on. So this is live.
Yeah,
Oh,
and mine's not coming on yet. I
okay.
still see 19 waiting.
All right, here we go. There it goes. All right. So I'm gonna do my advertising thing. We'll see where we're at. Maybe we'll answer. Yeah. So all right, I'll start again. Hey, it's Tim. Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. I'm not sure what goes on with this stuff. It is gremlins in the system is my official answer to that. Jill and I were just chatting how we're not married. My wife wants to make sure I say that very loud. Not married. No, we did a Tundra video together in Florida, and the comments were obnoxious, all consistently being not married. But as Jill pointed out, off air there for a minute, that's a lot of people that came to the channel haven't been to the channel before, and I was thinking it was kind of odd because I literally put her name in a title bar, and I said she came from Chicago, and like we're different places, and I don't know. But I thought I don't want to digress too much in this video, but if you haven't seen the video yet, it really surprised me the number of views immediately out of the bat, like out of the gate. Really a lot of views, and really a lot of good compliments. Jill had some fun with the truck and the tailgate scene, which I should just cut that out. That scene was hilarious. There is some conversations about whether or not Jill fits in my golf bag, my golf luggage, and technically she could, but it's not comfortable. Yeah, so we had lots of fun drama today. Although it does have some, I could add some padding. I don't know, padding, air, water.
Yeah, I want to be able to breathe as well. So,
Yeah, I think that's important. That'd probably be pretty important. We have to do. I believe we're. Yeah, I can see us on screen. We have to do
okay.
cheers to Jill for 1,000 subscribers on her personal channel. She finally
Look,
did it. She finally made it happen. Cheers to you. Finally it happened.
solid. I even have champagne.
Yes. So I will say as uh, an experienced YouTuber now, I guess is what I am. It is really hard to get that first 1,000 subscribers. It's really hard, and so that's most channels. Like I think it was numbers like 97% never get there. So cheers to you. We have
Thank you.
yeah. If you haven't checked out her channel, she's doing some fun stuff. I'm educating her to do different things, expanding her reach, expanding what's going on. So that was the update there. I wanted to talk about those couple things because they were dominant on the channel. And lots of good news this week. The Silverado dropping AFM and DFM. Cheers to Jill. $5 from Dave. Hey, Dave. $5 for Jill. We had that big news. We still have the Rust issue going on. Jill's got a good article coming out in the Rust issue soon. And we have two things. I may do another owner in Miami. He's got a Rust issue. He wants to be on camera because he's got some opinions that are he's pretty frustrated. And then we are doing a shop in New Hampshire that's going to talk us through why they rust coat trucks, happen to be GM and Ford. Rust coat those trucks all the time too. So we're continuing to beat that drum and dead horse. And yes, I guess I'm going to prepare to be called an idiot 9,000 more times. But yeah, that's what's going on with that. But we still have YouTube news. I'm gonna jump into this next segue. Um, I don't know, Jill, if you've seen the video drama about this, but I have been kind of paying attention. So there's a Street Speed 717 who bought a Ram TRX.
Yeah.
So he's bought this Ram TRX, and he's got 1.3 million subs, 3 million. He's got quite a few subscribers. He's a young, I would say, young kid, younger fella, younger dude, yeah, younger dude, and he's definitely bought into the idea of YouTube as a platform to do stupid things with vehicles. That's kind of his entire channel. And so he bought this Ram TRX. He jumped it. He lit it on fire. He put big wheels on it. I mean, he just did a bunch of stuff to this truck, and he's gotten the views. I mean, millions of people are watching this stuff, and it's entertainment. They enjoy it. That's fine. I mean, okay. He got sued, and not sued. He got served 18 criminal complaints, and these are criminal complaints from the Fish and Parks Department there in. Oh, what's the name of that state? I forget. I'm going to pull up the story now because I forget the state. But it was after he jumped the Ram TRX. So he basically jumps this Ram TRX across the stream. He destroys some of the truck. The truck breaks a little bit too. Some of the shocks break. Even in his video, he says, "I don't think this is a good idea," but he jumps it anyways. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's Mike Hizong is his real name, and Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. I didn't realize, I said fish and game. I didn't realize fish and boat were together in the commission, but okay. So it's 18 criminal complaints against him, and this was actually filed. This is filed in court, and the Drive got the file. They got the file saying this is what he did. And the complaint is his charges. Here's goes. His charges include various variations of specific verbiage within Title 30. Ooh, sounds important. Including 2 counts of disturbance of waterways and watersheds, 6 counts of pollution of waters, 6 counts of littering, and 4 counts of misuse of property and waters. It equates to 8 third-degree misdemeanor charges, 4 second-degree summary offenses, 6 first-degree summary offenses. Wow, sounds impressive. So this dude, I'll go with this, Mike Hissong. I think it's Hyssong. So I'm gonna go with Hissong. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So Mike
Mostly correct.
decided to make a video about this because that's what we do. We make videos about this stuff. And he made a video about this saying how much he thought was BS. He was on private property. How much they hate him personally. And he pays a bunch of money in taxes. And they should just leave him alone because he pays all this money in taxes. I mean, that's an obvious reason, right? And that he is being targeted unfairly. And it's all a load of crap. He does illegal stuff somewhat all the time anyways. This is not that big of a deal. And which I thought was hilarious. And he decided to make all this public. So he's with his lawyers going to fight this out. And I'm like, so you admitted on camera that you do illegal stuff. And then he also admitted that he was on private land. So he's like, well, I'm on private land. They can't touch me there. And I'm like...
But he probably had permission to be on that private land. That was the takeaway I took or the assumption I made.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he'd have permission. But here's the thing. My son and I were just talking about this. Minecraft, it's like science, right? So water doesn't just belong to the private landowner. Water goes different places. So if you intentionally destroy waterways and intentionally screw up like native populations of geese and ducks, and you pollute the water goes downstream to everybody else. So I think it's a really interesting thing. So I mean, on the one hand, right? So on the one hand, I've been on private land. And I jumped a TRX in private land. Now, I did it over a dirt road and ran a farmer ditch road. And I stayed on the road. I didn't cross the creek. I didn't do anything. I didn't launch it. I didn't break the truck. I wasn't trying to get a million views. It just was my friend and I went and jumped the truck. So I've done what he did. However, I didn't fly over waterways. And I didn't litter, which I think is interesting. He says he littered. I'm not sure what happened there, but I didn't litter.
Things fell off the truck. I'm just saying, I saw stuff fall off the truck. That would be littering if he did not pick it all up.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. So I mean, I've literally done the same thing he did. Now, I did not get the same reaction to my video that he did. I mean, my video did like 1,000 views, and he did like 1.2 million because he Dukes of Hazzard his truck. I mean, that's what he was doing. So I think this is interesting, though. It's a very interesting case of and then, all right, so this is all misdemeanors, right? So let's say he only pleads guilty to a couple of these. Does it really matter with this guy? I mean, his business plan is to go buy the next Raptor or something else and do something with it. I mean, it doesn't, it's like a slap on the wrist for this guy. And I just find it fascinating that he's like, well, I do illegal stuff all the time. I don't really care. And I'm like, well, that's really kind of a bad thing to say on camera, especially a bad thing to say on camera when your lawyers are like trying to defend you. And literally, YouTube is now, as a social platform, it's all public. And so, that Pennsylvania Water and Boat Commission has probably screenshot and recorded all these videos as evidence. So, you know that thing about trial, you go to trial, there's discovery phase. It's all been discovered.
Yeah.
We got your videos. So I don't know. I think it's very interesting. It's a case where young kids are, and then this guy's kind of a role model with kids, right? So I mean, he's gonna see. I mean, we're all kind of role models at some point on this platform. So he's gonna see more and more people following his footsteps, and he's basically flaunting the law because he wants to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he's glamorizing something that should not be glamorized, frankly. And it's funny because all the time on various social media, I have people like, I want to do your job. It looks so cool. And I'm like, okay, you're seeing guys who are jumping a Ram TRX over a creek, and that's what you think my job is. I'm like, yeah, no, my job is not that. Doing what I do is a lot of drudgery, a lot of writing, a lot of editing, a lot of, trying to figure out how the heck to edit video, because thank you. Thank you for everybody here who has subscribed. I should say that too. But the reason why I don't put out more videos is because I'm a really crappy editor. It takes me forever. And so I may only be putting out one video a month for the first little bit because I just can't figure out how to make that process faster. So there's a lot of drudgery, yet everybody thinks, oh, I can be an influencer, I can be a YouTube star, and I can have millions of people follow me. And I'm just like, yeah, that is not what I do. I'm actually somebody with a journalism degree who spends a lot of time doing a lot of stuff I didn't think I would be doing.
Crawling underneath the vehicles, checking for dipsticks. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in our job that we just take for granted. It is an interesting line, though. Something that I've discussed with Roman over at TFL, and we've had discussions about it, is there's this fine line, internet, especially on YouTube, between trying to be a journalist and then trying to be entertainment. So, they've done a lot of TFL, and they've had a great run, big channel. They've done a lot of drag racing videos, the TRX versus everything. I think at this point, their next video is gonna be the TRX versus a Camry. I mean, it's like every single vehicle they can find are doing drag racing, and that stuff doesn't appeal to me at all. And so it's really, this channel may not ever be as big as their channel is, but I think our work is different. Our work is more of a journalism work. We're doing, hard-hitting journalism work at times. We're holding companies accountable like Ford. We're asking questions about Rust. We're doing the things I think journalists are supposed to do. And I just think that these other channels, like the Street Speed, he's going to make a bunch of money. He's going to pay these fines, no big deal. And so I don't know. I just can't. I couldn't sleep at night if we were doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but it's definitely a fine line. And we're all trying to walk the balance. Because and the way I write for Pickup Truck plus SUV Talk is very different than the way I used to write for Sinclair Broadcast, for example. That was a very conservative company. I famously, when was it Toyota did their can I say SHIT on here?
Sure. I think we're trying to cross that bar anyways.
Because I just spelled it out. But when they did their campaign with their fuel cells, fueled by bullshit. And I wanted to use that in a headline, and CNN was using it in their headlines, and they said no. And I was like, okay, I'm working for you. I will absolutely obey your rules. Totally cool. I get it. But I mean, I think Tim would probably let me get away with putting that in a headline because that was the name of the campaign, fueled by bullshit.
Yeah.
So I mean, but the thing is I'm still trying to adhere to journalistic integrities and be honest and but insert a little bit of entertainment into it as well. Hence going over the tailgate in the Tundra, but. I mean, it's also to prove a point because there is no step up. But so I think there's definitely a fine line where you're trying to be a little bit entertaining, but also be informative and not look too stupid. Hopefully, I didn't look stupid.
No, I think it made the video. I think and I mean, that's the thing. It's that's the thing. As a publisher, I struggle with all the time because it's I can do videos all day long, but I think a bigger picture, how the outlet's going to look, our image, our brand, that kind of stuff. And it's I don't want to be that people doing that because, again, we may never be as big as those other channels are, but I'm okay with that because I can sleep at night because I think what we do, I'm really proud of what we're doing. So I just, so Greg says, keep up doing the journalism. Like you said, too many videos are just clickbait and not informative whatsoever. Who cares about racing vehicles like that? I agree. I don't know what it is that just turns me off on that, but so Jill went to the private airstrip and did 0 to 60 in the Ram TRX using launch control, but she also showed what launch control was. I mean, to me, that's a different thing. She wasn't trying to beat a time of something else. I mean, so it's always a fine line there between what we're trying to do, but. Let's move along because I could talk about that for all night because it's a really interesting topic. This other topic may get you guys a little interesting and fired up. It's been a conversation been happening a lot on. I've been following this story for about 2-3 years now. The Diesel Brothers case comes to mind. Different cases come to mind. So basically, the EPA I think it's about 5 years ago now, reread the Clean Air Act. Basically, is what they did. Decided to enforce a crackdown on people that were deleting their diesel trucks, but they were going to do it at the company level. So what they've done is they've looked at companies selling these defeat devices and getting rid of emissions equipment and diesels, and they've done major fines. I mean, there's a company in Florida that got $7 million fine, filed bankruptcy. Diesel Brothers basically got, I don't know what the fine was, but it was massive, and they tried to appeal it, and I think they still are in court over that. And their channel and their show and everything got a lot of bad press about that. I think they're actually off the air. They may still be, I don't know. I don't know about that one. People can correct me on that one, because I watched them a little bit, and I didn't care for their style a little bit, but they got a huge fine. And now we have a company that's called Gearbox Z, and they have been targeted by the EPA as an emissions defeat device. And SEMA has joined on. Now, the article I'm reading is close to information. SEMA is a Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association. They have a big show in Vegas, what people know. It's lifted trucks or slam trucks. I mean, that's all you got. Or Jeeps are lifted or Jeeps are slammed. I mean, the whole show is about aftermarket accessories. However, SEMA also has a very strong wing of the company that works in politics. And they have a branch of people that work in D.C. that are lobbyists that work towards aftermarket companies, that work towards, they're out there, lawyers trying to fight for the people and make laws that benefit them. So SEMA's joined the fight. They've actually helped with the GBZ, I guess we're calling these people, and they are suing back the EPA because they're discussing whether or not the EPA has leverage to do this. Does the Clean Air Act actually allow them to do it? And because one of the things that is part of the Clean Air Act, which is part of the what the SEMA's tried to do, is they tried to pass this legislation called the RPM Act, which is recognizing the protection of motorsports. What this does is it says off-road vehicles and racing vehicles are excluded from diesel emissions. Now, it's passed the House. It should pass the Senate. I mean, it should go into law. I mean, this is, that way, if you're still going to do off-road racing only, you're not going to be penalized by the emissions equipment. I get that. However, there is a fine line here between people that are taking advantage of this, saying, oh, I race my truck. Yeah, so you race your truck 1 year at the county fair and you pull a sled. like, come on now. There's this fine line here. So there's a really interesting thing going on, and it's I don't know. The article is a little snarky the way he wrote it, but because there's a lot of debate about climate change, a lot of debate going on. So it's a really interesting question for me is, the EPA has done a great job. 1970s air quality today, they've done a great job. They've really cleaned up the air. However, today we have a very interesting conversation to have and debate to have whether the EPA has gone too far. At some there's this line where they have really improved the air quality. Like if you look at 1970s Pittsburgh versus 2021 Pittsburgh, I mean, it's incredible. And I tell people all the time, I said, look back to the Beijing Games 2008. You can even see that Easter egg they built for that arena because it was so damn polluted over there. Now, I've also argued that India and China have more problems with pollution, which is causing us to have problems. U.S. air quality is actually really good, but where do you rein that in?
And so you follow Ed on Facebook. You're from on Facebook, right?
All right,
and he lives in the LA area.
Okay.
And
you froze for a second.
Oh, sorry. So we have a mutual friend. His name is Ed Kim. He lives in the LA area, and he's a runner. And he posts pictures of his running. And at the I would say at the middle of the pandemic, he posted a picture while he was running of the Hollywood Hills. And he's like, this is the first time I've been able to see the Hollywood sign from where I'm at in years. And it was because nobody was driving. And so, I mean, can you go too far? Can you go too far with regulations? And I don't know the answer to that. But I have asthma, and I'll tell you, I didn't have asthma until I lived in Chicago. And I think that probably 95% of it is because of the pollution here, and I run outside on city streets. We went to Alaska before, the world closed, and for a vacation, my husband and I did. My husband, who is not Tim, by the way. We went to Alaska for we like took a cruise, and I forgot my inhaler, and I had a complete freak out moment because I was like, should I order an inhaler up here? Like, should I? But it was fine. I could totally breathe fine. So I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I do think the government gets their fingers too involved, but from somebody who directly benefits from less pollution, I don't know what's too far.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the cities you still have some issues because of the maritime of boats and ships. Chicago's still a big port. You have airfare, which is a big issue as well. Those things are both polluting. And then in the big cities, you have just congestion. You have lots of delivery trucks and delivery vans and semis driving in. I think, that's where I've said in different videos that having an EV delivery truck makes total sense. Not just from pollution standpoint of a city, because those guys are driving 50 to 100 miles a day. I mean, that's a long day in a city driving. But also in the fact that noise pollution reduction. One of the things I was very shocked at when I was writing that hydrogen fuel cell semi was how quiet it was and how much quieter the cities could be if you eliminate some of that noise of those vehicles driving around. So I think there's a very interesting point there both ways. It's interesting to see somebody stand up the EPA like SEMA, which is big. So you have these two big conglomerate going at each other. I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays in the courts. I'm sure they'll find some loophole, some way, and maybe come to sort of compromise or something. Won't come to compromise, but diesel emissions has been a long-standing grudge with a lot of people. There's a huge swath of this country that's very upset with the EPA, and to some degree they are. I mean, they are very upset for a variety of reasons. What's interesting is John Volcker. That's close. Volcker, yeah. Who I've debated on his channel. He's an EV advocate. Him and I were talking on Facebook, as we typically do, and he got really fired up about it because he said it's not the EPA. It's the dipshits that were running GM, Ford, and Chrysler at the time that really screwed up the diesels in 2007. So I've actually contracted him to write a story about that because he was deep involved in that back in 2007. So I'll be curious to get that story and read it through and see what his point of view on that is and what he was thinking back then, because he's like, no, he says the engineer screwed it up, not EPA. EPA was fine. I don't know. And globally, you have this whole thing, and diesels are bad. Nobody's going to build diesels because they have too much. I don't know. But you look at diesels, and you got, they're running near zero emissions. Thank you, my friends, Diesel Technology Forum, who email me every couple of days. They're running near zero emissions, and they're getting cleaner and cleaner as we go. And I think that the horsepower and torque is getting much better than it used to be. But yeah, they call it different things. Like you delete it, you modify it, because people on Facebook and different forums are fearful of what the EPA is doing now because the EPA cops are being called out. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. I thought I'd bring that up because I'm sure we'll talk about that more and more as the case goes through the courts, because I think it's going to be interesting. So, well, I want to, before I get to my last news item I had, I should throw it to Jill because you had one, at least one. Do you have one more than one? What do you got? What do you got for us, Jill? Let me stop talking.
You stop talking? That would be like nearly impossible. No, I mean, there were just a couple of things from Hyundai that they announced this week, and since we had talked about some like EV stuff and Hyundai stuff previously, I just figured it'd be worth mentioning. Hyundai revealed today that they are going to offer free EV charging. They have a partnership with oh God, I'm completely blanking on it, but they have a partnership. And of course, I didn't pull up the press release. With
Electrify America,
charging,
I think it was.
Yes, that's it. So they have, because I'm like, it's not ChargePoint. But yeah, so they've got a partnership with Electrify America where they're going to be offering free ultra-fast charging. I think it was ultra-fast charging for the Ioniq, which is their new electric sub-brand. And their first vehicle they're launching is an SUV, and then the Kona EV. So I don't know. We've talked about EVs previously, and the problem that obviously I had in Chicago was it's really hard to find a charging station, one, but also like a fast charging station. So like I could find level 2 stations, but finding a level 3 station was a lot further away. And, I think that we need partnerships like this from pretty much every automaker who has an electric car to really start building the infrastructure to make EVs practical and possible. Because I mean, I could drive from Chicago to Milwaukee on an EV, like with a single charge. But I'm going to be going to Duluth in June. There's no way in heck I'm going to be able to drive for 7 hours, with an EV to get there. So I mean that's just not possible. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting. And then the other bit of news that Hyundai came out with is, and I'm going to be going on the launch for the Hyundai Tucson in April. So you'll get some first look information there. But they announced that in addition to just their regular Tucson, they're going to be doing a PHEV, which we've talked about PHEVs before. And the fact that nobody plugs them in, or at least nobody in Nebraska plugs them in. Everybody in Chicago plugs them in, but nobody in Nebraska plugs them in. But they're going to be doing a PHEV and the complete opposite end of the spectrum, they're going to introduce an N-Line. So like the sporty performance version of the Tucson. So, we had the opportunity to see the Tucson, golly, was that back in November maybe? When they first revealed it. And I think we definitely wrote a story about it. I feel like we might have posted a video walk around of it. It's really flippin' cool looking. I actually can't wait to drive it because it looks really cool. And get this, they're doing the media drive in, where do you think they're doing it?
Florida.
You probably already know where they're doing
Florida.
it. No. Where?
That's the
Hyundai Tucson, where are they going to do?
Yes, in
where
Arizona.
Are they going to do? Tucson. They're going to do it in Tucson. So, yeah. But no, so just some Hyundai news.
Right, but let's roll this back a little bit because we all saw your Mustang Mach-E review. And because here's the thing, folks. Jill can do EV reviews. I can't do them because he won't bring me the cars to my place because there's a lot.
They would have to truck them.
Yeah, I mean, they literally flatbed them to me because there's a lot of physics issues getting them here because of I'm close to range, and then I have high speed limits, I have high winds, elevation changes. And it just makes them nervous. They just have range anxiety, and frankly, I just don't do it. Jill's much better with them. She's in the city. It makes a lot more sense. But my question for you is this. Electrify America has this. Ford was doing their thing on the app. You could find it where it's going. Tesla's got their charging stations and stuff. So, trying to make it so you could do a road trip. You could do the road trip with the 7 hours. It'd take you longer because you have to stop and charge. But you could do it. But what I'm curious about is that do you think that having more fast charging stations in Chicago would really make the difference? Or is it more of really that people need to have it charging at home?
It's a bit of both. I think Chicago, in many ways, is a tough place to have an EV because, I've lived in a place where I didn't have a parking space. I lived in a place where I had a garage. I lived in a place where I parked in a spot off of an alley. I've lived in, I now live in a home that has a garage. But I've lived in various places. That's not a nursing home.
That's a real home.
It's actually, a house. But so I've lived in a lot of different places in Chicago with varying degrees and abilities of being able to charge. And if you watched my my Mach-E video, I had a funny moment where there was clearly somebody who did not have a home charging station that needed to charge their Nissan Leaf, and we had a little bit of the standoff where I pulled in to charge, and dude was saving the space in a red paneled van. He was saving the space next to the charger for his wife who was coming up in a Nissan Leaf. And I'm like, no, that is not how this works. I was here first. Back off. But I mean, here's the thing. Like, rolling it back, trying to make my point here. In Chicago, I would say probably 10% of the people who live here, maybe have the ability to charge at their home or to install a home charger. Because you have high rises, you have condos, you have, people like who buy places that don't have a parking space. They have to park on the street. You have people who buy places who still don't have any place to charge, and you have to park on the street. So there's a lot of street parking and not a lot of charging capability. And so I think perhaps especially in a place like Chicago, you need a place where you would have the capability to do an ultra fast charge. And I can't remember. I think it was on the Hyundai Ioniq. It was maybe the 5 or the 7. I forget which one they were launching first. I think it was maybe the 5. But they have the capability with the ultra fast charging to get a 80% charge in 18 minutes. So, I mean, that's me going to Walgreens, plugging in, standing in line to get my prescription and buy a pack of gum, and then coming back out, and I've got 80% of my charge back. And then I can go home and I can plug into the wall and keep building onto the charge. As we saw, for me driving to Milwaukee or almost to Milwaukee and back, I was at 30% charge. When I got back, it took me 3 days to get up to 98%. So, I mean, yeah, I think.
I guess what I find interesting in EVs is that I think in the city, EV is a great solution because you're not driving many miles each day. But I also think EVs in a city, like you've pointed out, logistically, are really tough. And so I find it's these opposing ideas that don't work together. Yeah. And I'm always mystified by how we're going to get past that. Because there is some part of the market that needs to go EV. Delivery vans, for example, short range delivery stuff. Taxi cabs could probably go, you could try to charge them at lunch, whatever the deal is. But, I mean, there's a percentage population that could go EVs. But I find in the city, I just don't understand how we're going to get to that point. I'm always curious to get your thoughts from a city point. But I want to jump to some comments real fast. We're getting some stuff, comments going through. So we're half an hour in. I think it's important in the show that the new style we're doing it. We should recap real fast. So I talked first about Street Speed 717, the YouTuber got charged with 18 criminal counts. I can read those counts real fast. Pennsylvania Boat and Water Department. He violated specific verbiage within Title 30. This is when he jumped the Ram TRX and broke it. 2 counts disturbance of waterways and watersheds. 6 counts of pollution of waters. 6 counts of littering. 4 counts of misuse of property and waters. Equates to 8 third-degree misdemeanor charges, 4 second-degree summary offenses, 6 first-degree summary offenses. And talking about conviction of those laws and fines, I mean could be fairly expensive. But again, rewind back to this, and you can our back and forth on this. I have some thoughts because I've literally jumped the truck as well on private property like he did. It's kind of interesting. And then we have the conversation with the EPA getting sued by SEMA. The SEMA's got the legal advocacy or advisory kind of part of their organization, and they're suing over the defeat devices. They're trying to get a court to rule that the EPA does not have power to enforce the parts of Clean Air Act that actually deal with defeat devices for diesels. And so they have joined the ongoing war against the EPA on this. And the conversation we had was about whether the EPA's got too much power and how it's going to work and that kind of stuff. So, and then Jill just talked about some charging stations at Ioniq, which is their brand in the Tucson. So we have that going on. And now the final story I had to pull up, and I'll just pull this up, is that and there's a question about the police truck F-150. I'll talk about that in a minute too. I was doing the same backgrounder. Honda and Toyota were hit by supply chain snags, and so this is interesting. I was thinking it was microchips. I actually told Jill, I said microchips. It's not. This is bizarre. Honda said late Tuesday supply chain issues will force a halt to production at the majority of U.S. and Canadian auto plants for a full week. Added Wednesday, the production shortages will extend to plants in Mexico. Separately, Toyota Motor Corp said a severe cold front last month has reduced supply of petrochemicals products, impacting production in the U.S. and Mexico. A guy on this channel said that he watched our Tundra Platinum review, and Jill and I talked about this a little bit earlier, and a dealer in his area said it'll be 60 to 90 days till he sees one of those in his lots because the plant in San Antonio is shut down because of these supply of petrochemical, not shut down, but there is a supply issue that's impacting how much production can happen. I don't know if they're shut down. I got to be very careful what I say because some people are like, "Oh, it's not shut down." I'm like, I don't know, it's not shut down. So the impact is happening on both those plants. I'm trying to see what Toda. So Toda said lines shifts potentially entire. Said lines shifts or potentially entire plants expect to be temporarily halted for several days in Kentucky, West Virginia, and Mexico. But I'm hearing stuff from San Antonio from consumers saying they're behind there as well. And so I think it's pretty interesting that we're not only are we getting semi-chip shortage, but we're getting cold front shortages. We had closing of factories because of that winter storm that came through Texas that really screwed things up. We got COVID-related supply issues happening with Ford. There's a lot of conversation right now online saying that the rust I have in my truck is actually a COVID-related supply issue that sat out in Detroit airport for too long and it rusted. I've seen conversations about that. There's conversations about Dearborn having the rust, but Missouri not having the rust. There's a lot of conversation on the buzz on this stuff going on. So I think it's really interesting what's going on because I think it was some brand said, maybe it was VW that said, they're looking at like 800,000 units are going to be impacted by getting in the marketplace. So what that means to you guys as consumers is this. Be expensive. It's going to be expensive to buy a vehicle. It's going to be expensive because, you have less supply, you have the same amount of demand, so you have less incentives going on for dealership to and manufacturers to sell stuff. So it's going to be a really interesting place to be for consumers saying, if you buy a truck, for example, you buy a truck in April, you may get nothing off, or $1,000, $2,000, whatever. But if you wait until September, October, November, when supply is built back up again and you have more competition and you have year-end numbers coming in, and everybody talks about how dealerships have month goals. They do. Dealerships month goal, best way to buy vehicles, end of the month, meet the sales goals. Well, guess what? Manufacturers have the same damn problem. They have big goals to meet at the end of the year. Oh, I just lost Jill. Where'd Jill go? There she went. She flipped. You blanked out for a minute. But manufacturers have the end of the year goals as well. So it's very interesting. That's why you kind of pay attention to this news a little bit if you're out there shopping as a consumer, because all these shortages and stuff really constrict supply. And check it out. As much as we love cars and trucks and SUVs, it's a business. And supply and demand is a big issue in the business. So I wanted to bring that up because those are interesting changes that probably going to impact some stuff as well. I didn't lose any weight, but thank you for saying, Gene. There was another conversation about the Ford F-150, the police truck. And I did the same backgrounder that TFL did. Backgrounder means I watch it, and then they lift the embargo and you publish stuff. But I didn't. I mean, it's cool. It does 120 miles per hour. They've upgraded some of the safety technology as far as the cruise control and things like that inside the cabin. It's got a really cool center stack, and they've made it. They made it better, overall. It's safer to drive and better. My thing with it was. My big takeaway was, why wasn't that truck developed as the Power Boost? I mean, the 3.5, the Power Boost I have is 570 torque, 430 horsepower. You can get that to 120 miles an hour. You have better fuel economy, and then you have the power on board on that as well. Which, you're talking about trucks are used in rural departments, right? And so I'm imagining these crime scenes are set up, or whatever happening in the countryside. And now you have an officer who could have power right there at the site. And he could run lights. He could plug in whatever he wants to plug in, whatever he needs to plug in. And so, I mean, I just was surprised by that. I thought, and maybe I missed something. They did make Sync. Let me think about this. They made Sync 4 standard. Okay. They made a 12-inch screen. I think it's 12-inch screen standard. I mean, they made some stuff standard. And I'm like, but I still thought to myself, why even mess around with that? Why not make? Because then the other point is, if you're a police officer and you're watching traffic, whatever, you're idling, but in the Power Boost, you're not idling. You're just on the engine's off. And so I kind of saw it as a complete miss. And I gave it to the other writer we have on the team, Erica, to write, because I was like, and maybe I need to do a video and call it a complete miss, because I thought what an opportunity they had to take their latest, greatest technology with all these benefits for police officers. Like I said, idling, no problem idling, power on board right there, 570 foot-pounds of torque, I mean, on demand. And if you've driven that power boost is fast. And they could tweak that 3.5 to be the high output 3.5. So high output 3.5, which was in the Raptor, combined with the electric powertrain combination, I don't know. I couldn't. I was very surprised. I'm sure they have some sort of good reasoning for it, but I don't know. I thought, what the hell? I thought that was a huge miss. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know in Chicago they use a lot of the old Fusion hybrids, for especially for the off-duty cop cars. But and we do have several of the Explorer cop cars around. So I live, fun fact, I live about a half a mile from our mayor. And if anybody has followed Chicago politics over the last year, she's been a little bit of a controversial figure. So she has, she's on my running route. When I go running, I run past her house every day. But she has anywhere between.
I'm really happy you clarified that because it was getting kind of creepy there for a little bit.
Oh yeah, I'm stalking her. I run past her house every day. No, she's on my running route. But she has anywhere between 3 and 4 like police vehicles parked in front of her house at any given time. And they're on, it's especially when it's cold outside, like those police are not sitting in 15 below without the heat on. So yeah, I mean, even in a situation like that, like you're going to have a lot of idling. Why wouldn't you want a hybrid? So yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think that is definitely, a bit of a miss. I mean, they're certainly more expensive, but over the long term, I think you would get more benefit from it.
Yeah, I just, people, since I've had the Ford, I've talked some high notes about the Ford because there's features that I like, but I thought it was a complete miss. And it is, Gene wants to know about heavier. It is a little bit heavier, but I mean, you take some of the features out, you can lightweight it. I mean, I don't see any reason why you couldn't jump it, over a curve, because the reality is the battery can be relocated for that too. I mean, you're not adding that much more to it. It's basically the same truck. Like it's really the same truck, just different powertrains. And I just thought, why didn't they do that? I don't know. I just really surprised me. I thought, could be a cost issue, but from a fleet standpoint, if I'm going to save a couple $100 a month in fuel because my officers now can idle without running the engine, isn't that a real world cost benefit? Isn't that a really improvement? Fleets look at stuff as on a total number basis, and gas prices is one of your highest fluctuating numbers. You got payroll and gas prices, vehicle costs, uniforms. That's all kind of line item stuff. But man, you got payroll and you got gas prices. I mean, those two things really add up. And so I just thought, as far as those kind of expenses, I thought, man, that's just a perfect application for that. And I just was really surprised that Ford blew it. I was watching a little bit of TFL's video, of Andre's video, and he was excited about how much fast speed and stuff. And I was like, in my part of the country, we have a combination of trucks, and we have some Yukons, and we have some SUVs, and we have some cars. And these days, with the way technology is, you don't see many high speed chases because a lot of times the cops just fall back because it endangers other people on the road. And so, I mean, yeah, getting there fast is great, but you have sedans go that fast. I mean, 120 to me is pretty great for a truck, but if you're doing a country stuff, I mean, I don't know. It wasn't like, oh my god, it's 120 miles per hour. This thing's awesome, I just was like, okay, all right. But interesting in the presentation, they didn't say how much faster that was an improvement. It could have been like 4 miles an hour faster. I don't know.
So what's really interesting is when I was posting Erica's article, and I'll be honest, I didn't read it. I mean, I read Erica's article, but I didn't read what I put as a related post. In 2018, you actually wrote another post about a Ford pickup truck Interceptor.
Yeah, I've covered this before. I mean, it's worth covering.
So it's not the first pickup truck?
No.
That has been a Ford, Responder or whatever, which I thought was interesting because I did a Google search for Ford and police just to see what came up on our site. And that came up, and it looks like the same truck. I mean, the photos look nearly identical. So I don't know. Like I said, I didn't read the article you wrote 3 years ago to see what the differences were. But
I probably just wrote a press release, so I didn't cover it too much because, let's be honest here. From a police standpoint, I don't know what these guys want from their vehicles. I'm not going to cover this in the way that makes sense. I'm going to cover it the way that's entertainment. We all want to see a police truck flying through the countryside. Like we all want to see. We don't want to be chasing us. Maybe street speed, but we don't be chasing us at all. So it's not for us to besides entertainment factor on this stuff. So I mean, and I've done events with Chevy where we've done Tahoes at their track and the police track down in. What was that, Texas somewhere? And we drove. I mean, those guys are really aggressive drivers, and they're fun. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be in that vehicle. I mean, I drove in. This always sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm not. I drove a Charger, a police Charger in an ice road track in Canada with the lights on and everything. We all had lights on. The lights were on all day long. You couldn't do video at that event because we're all like playing the lights because it was just so much fun. But I remember I got into this police car, and I got in the front seat. And there's all of these switches and knobs and such, and I'm like, I have no idea what all this stuff is. like we had to have somebody come out and actually explain to us what each one does because we have no idea. I don't know. Yeah. It seems like that was a miss. I just thought that they could have done better. Let's see. Okay, so let's get back to the undercoating situation. That's going to come up a lot, and we'll probably talk about this quite a bit. So Dick wants to know about undercoating my truck. So I have the new truck, got a little rust on it. Currently, my plan is that it's wintertime, and I don't want to get underneath of it. But I also plan on making a dealership sometime next week or two to do an oil change. And I'm going to analyze the oil and do the whole process there. But I also plan to do an oil change. I think I got like 3,000 miles on it or something. And I figure that's about time. New engine, new oil just makes me feel better if I change oil. I know I'm going to sell it. People have been saying, well, you're just going to sell it anyways. Why do you even care? Well, I do care. I do. That's who I am. I care about this stuff. So I'm going to go change oil. And I plan on asking the service manager on there about the rust and getting their viewpoint. My current thinking is they're going to be blowing me off because we don't have rust in this area. I was telling somebody the nearest undercoating shop for me is, I think there's a Kronk undercoating, which is, I looked it up, it's $150 to do my truck at its size online. I'm probably wrong. It's probably $300, something like that. But online it said $150. But here's the thing. The nearest shop for me is in Omaha, and that is 8 hours east. So I would spend 16 hours driving my truck to have a $150 service done on it. I would probably end up spending $500. But I looked at fuel, hotel for at least a night. Who knows, maybe they get in that same day, early, whatever, and stuff out. Food, I mean, maybe not 500, but I mean, lost work time. I mean, I'd have a considerable expense to do that. And that's just, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that at all. So what I will probably end up doing is, as soon as I get the farm and get my good jack stands, is I probably will end up jacking it up in the, I have a little bit of rock on my driveway here. And I'll probably put it up above the rock. I'll probably power wash it pretty good and clean it up pretty good. And then I'll probably just spray over top of it. I won't, Jill has an article coming out and you'll learn a little bit more about rust here, but I will not scrape the rust off. That's not good. I won't scrape the rust off, but I will just, there's fluid film that comes in a black. There's that has a black color to it. I think it is. There's 1,000 suggestions I got. Wool wax was came up as well, and so I will definitely do that where I will spray it and then let that be. I won't do the muffler. I won't do the hangers and muffler hangers. I'm not going to deal with that stuff at all. But I just want to clean up the rear axle. And again, it's not about me. It's not about what I think about the rust and why, whatever. It's about the fact I'm going to sell this, and I want the next guy to know I took care of it. And I feel like if he looks underneath there and sees rust developing already on a truck that's got 4,000 or 5,000 miles, he may be in the same boat I am, and it creates a question in your mind, what else is wrong with the truck? So again, that's where I'm at. And I think it's interesting that there's that series of videos, and Jill's throwing the fire a little bit on this too, has created a lot of conversation. We've either been called an idiot, or put an F in front of that, idiot, or we've been, applauded, right, for pointing this out. I mean, it's a very interesting thing. And what I tell people all the time is, I'm surprised that there's so much pushback on it being normal. Why aren't we demanding more? Like, why is it normal? Like, why don't we ask these questions? And it's not normal for all brands. I'm sorry. I went to the dealership lot. I drove around, checked them all out. I've talked to different owners of Tundras, of Rams, of Titans. It's not normal. It's not normal. It isn't. I have a guy in Miami who I'll probably be interviewing next week who has a 2010 Ford and doesn't have the same amount of rust as his 2021 Ford has. Same area of the country, same place, same truck. So it's not. There's something going on with that. And while it is cosmetic, there is an issue where rust is a cancer, and cancers do spread, unfortunately. So I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I posted a TikTok video on this, and you want to talk about people who troll. I have never seen so many horrible comments. I finally just stopped reading them. And there were, I probably got 500 comments, and 250 of them were like, hell no, I wouldn't buy this. No, 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 no. And then the other 250 comments were like, stupid woman, leave this to a man to talk about. I'm like, really? That's what you got for me? Somebody called me honey, and I was like, okay, sweetheart. I'm like, really? If you want to go with terms of endearment, all right, let's go. But I'm like, oh, I mean, whatever. But it's just, I find it an interesting topic. I'm always curious to see what people have to say about it, and I've had a hard time finding people who will talk on the record. So a lot of the information that I'm going to be publishing is going to be on background, and I'm not going to be naming names because people don't want to be quoted.
Yeah, because it's controversial. One of my friends that I know personally was in the military. She's in the Air Force. And she says, do you understand why there's an entire division that's focused on rust prevention and coating tanks and airplanes and stuff? She goes, because think about it. Do you want to hop in an airplane that's rusty? And I was like, that's a damn good, that's a really good thing. I mean, it's interesting. It's a very interesting question. It's like, would you hop in a rusty airplane? You wouldn't. So why would you hop in a rusty truck by yourself? But again, it's a can of worms. It's a whole thing. It's interesting because your TikTok video though was in a Ford Bronco Sport. Ford Bronco Sport. It was. So you had the Ford Bronco Sport with how many miles was that?
There were 6,000 miles on it. And
you had, it was the CB joints that had rusted. The muffler looked like it was pretty bad shape. I mean, it didn't look good underneath at 6,000 miles.
No, and I imagine part of the problem there is, so usually when vehicles come into the media fleet, they were initially part of the media preview program, whatever, where they do some really heavy off-roading. And so I imagine that there was probably a lot of dirt and mud, and in addition to the snow and ice and salt that we've been getting that were on the under bits, as I'm now calling them, of the vehicle.
So wait. So she called them undercarriage in her video, and she got blasted for that. What's crazy is I called it the differential cover. We'd always called it diff. We always called it the rear diff back there. Third member, some people say. It's actually technically the rear axle housing. I've had other engineers tell me on your diff cover. I mean, we've all just natural terminology, but we're getting nailed left and right if we don't do the exact terminology. And I'm sorry, it's still the undercarriage. I call it, when you go to the car wash, it says, do you want the undercarriage wash?
Yes, exactly. So the next time somebody calls a tissue a Kleenex, I'm going to be, is that really a Kleenex? Let's have a conversation about that. Yeah. So I saw somebody ask in here why you wouldn't scrape off the rust. And so, I mean, some of the parts, as it has been explained to me, the rust actually it creates a protective coating over the part that has rusted. So, I mean, by scraping off the rust, you're actually probably going to do damage to the vehicle, and make it thinner. And then if it re-rusts, then you're going to get holes. And so, again, trying to get people to talk about this is really hard. But I'm part of what I want to do with the article that I'm writing is say, hey, this is what's cosmetic. This is what you should be concerned about. And this is when you should have it professionally dealt with, and don't take a sandblaster, and maybe don't even power wash. You need to be very careful about that. go get an undercarriage wash.
Right. Well,
but
yeah,
but like just kind of talking about like what you should and shouldn't do, and when you should be concerned. So
yeah, it's going to be, and no matter what, if you take this article and you write it's going to be controversial. I'm telling you right now, whatever you say, but you have talked with some steel experts. You've talked with some major experts in the field who won't go on record because they're scared of Ford. I mean, that's what it is. And so, we're having we're trying to get the right answers because, again, it's a conversation I want to have with the audience, a conversation I want to have with people that says this is normal, not normal. And I think the other part of it is the consumer's changing. Like, my needs are changing. Maybe my dad wouldn't care for it, wouldn't matter to him. My grandfather wouldn't matter to him, but it matters to me. Well, so what? It doesn't mean I'm different from those guys. It just means that it matters to me. And I think this new generation of buyers, like myself and people below me, are buying Rivian and Tesla and stuff like that, the Cybertrucks. I think they're going to matter. I mean, can you imagine the Rivian R1T showing up at somebody's house with rust and then undercarriage? I mean, that would just... Right? So why is it okay for Ford to have it? Yeah, I mean, it's... I don't know. It's a very interesting conversation that we've been having. And yeah, it's been fascinating to watch the responses to TikTok and stuff. There was one other I wanted to see if I could get to it. Yeah, somebody says that's disappointing that we can't get it. Ford an answer. Favorite diesel engine, Logan. That's the Chevy Silverado 3-liter diesel. I actually like Duramax too with the 6 Allison and heavy duty. Just a good answer. Yeah, I think I covered most everything. Crown and Rust-Oleum come in cans. Okay, I would just do the same stuff in the can. I would spray the same stuff in the can because I think that's one thing. Henry said, "How about real world cost?" I'm not sure what he's referring to. But yeah, I just wanted to. I'm looking for Harry's other comment. I don't see it.
Oh, that I'm a sweetheart for Jonathan? Yes, I am. And thank you for remembering my husband's name.
Oh my goodness. So I've actually had 3 wives on my channel. I've had Jill.
So wait, you've been married 3 times? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I've been married twice, but I've had my actual wife on this channel and my kids. I've had Nicole Wakeland, who people thought was my wife. I could see from an occasional viewer standpoint, somewhat similar. And then I've had Jill, who's now my wife. So I'm just like a sheik, man. I keep getting this whole like lineup of wives everywhere I go, which I'm telling you, that's not the plan. I can barely deal with what I have.
Well, my ex-work husband is Moto Man.
Oh yes. We have a lot of times we travel so much. We have traveling wives and traveling husbands because we spend so much time with each other. Yeah. And planes and bars and restaurants and hotels, but. All right, so I'm going to end. I got one more thing I want to end with. So this is interesting. The question is, and this comes up a lot. This came up in the Tundra video I did. This is going to come up on the videos moving forward for probably the next 20 years. The thing is, Jason D says, knowing all this with Ford, would you switch brands of trucks? Man, is that a hard question. That's a really hard question. So, I mean, and you have to understand my viewpoint here is that I'm both a consumer and a journalist, right? So on the one hand, I'm going to be truthful to you as a journalist, and I'm also going to be truthful with my truck as a consumer. On the other hand, I have to play the game a little bit with Ford, right? I can't do a video that says, what a piece of crap truck, and I freaking hate it forever, right? Because I need to work with Ford. You guys are buying Ford products and vehicles. We can't get banned like TFL and never do Ford stuff ever again, right? For a 6-month ban, whatever. That's not fair to you, the audience. It's not fair for me to have a personal grudge that makes you not get the information you need. That's not fair, right? So and you can call me out for not being a journalist, whatever, that kind of deal, but I have to be fair to all parties here. I have to be fair to you, the viewer, and give you the information I'm thinking in my head today and what I'm seeing, information about Ford vehicles in the future. I can't get cut off, and I need to make sure that I'm truthful to you too, because the last thing I have in this business is credibility. If I lose my credibility, I lose my job, right? So that's all in my head. As I said in my video, I still like my F-150. I like the features of it. It's a great truck. I like the way it drives. I did some donuts today. It was kind of fun in the snow. On the way home, I had to blow off some steam, so I did a few donuts. I mean, it's capable. I got the rear locker in there. I got the big 12-inch screen. I just enjoy driving it. It's one of the trucks I really enjoy driving it. One of the things we were just a little bit talking about online is I'm going to come probably see Jill this summer, and I'm bringing the family. We're going to get in the truck and we're going to go because it's comfortable. We can all four fit in the truck, and I'll have Jill check out the truck too. We'll do a video like that. It'd be great. But I mean, it's the road trip truck. Great. I've done some stuff in Menards. I've hauled some stuff in the back. It's great. I can't wait to put some rock down as soon as this blizzard snow goes away. It's great for that. Would I switch brands? Yes. Not because of what you're thinking. I'm not like upset at Ford. It's that as a journalist, I'm going to switch brands because I don't want to become biased. For a couple reasons. First of all, I don't want to become biased that I only drive Ford trucks because you can see this online. You see this different channels. They will build their entire channel around Chevy trucks or Ford trucks, whatever. They will build it, and that's not what this channel is a journalism channel. This is what we're going to do. We're going to review vehicles, do news stories, talk about stuff. I mean, I'm going to applaud all the trucks and beat them all down too. I'm going to do both. I'm going to give you guys the honest feedback. I'm always going to have a tax issue because this channel keeps growing, and I'll need the tax write-off. So yeah, it's good, but I also want to one of the things that I guess I don't talk about too much on this is that it's so good as a journalist to buy a vehicle, not because it gives me credibility. I bought a truck, whatever. That's bull. But it really helped me understand a lot more about Ford. I know a ton more about Ford I do today because of buying a truck than I did before. I know what the 302A high package is. I didn't know what the hell that was before. I didn't know all the issues. I didn't know all the stuff about Ford. I've never owned a Ford. I've owned a Toyota. I've owned Mazda. I've owned Honda. I've owned Chevys. I've owned GMC. I just have never owned a Ford. And so it's great to get in this truck every day and drive a different brand and really live with a truck and learn a bunch of stuff. Again, apparently Ford's been rusting for a long time now. I didn't know. We didn't know. I didn't know this. I never thought to check it out. But it's made you a better journalist because now, like Jill said, we're now, for the future going forward, we're going to be crawling in trucks all the time, which is...
Yeah. Well, I have a Buick Envision this week, and I'm trying to figure out how I can crawl under that. All new for 2021. That'll be coming up. But yeah, I'm like, all right. How can I crawl under that to look and see if there's any rust? I may just me, like, I have a selfie stick. It may be just me sticking the selfie stick underneath the truck to look and see.
But, these kind of stories make us better journalists, which is, at the end of the day, that's the best part. Like, Jill and I are very much professionals at our craft. We want to get better. Our goal is to get better every video we put out, every story we put out. And to get better at our jobs means asking tough questions, calling the vehicles, and learning new stuff. I've messed up stuff. I've messed up facts. I've added facts. I mean, we always make mistakes, but that's on the day it's going to be up from that. So, I guess the long-winded, all the way back to zero answer is yes, I'm changing brands, not because of the rust, because it's a good business decision. And I don't think less of my F-150 because it has rust. I think it's disappointing that me as an owner of a $57,000 truck has to now spray it. I think that's very disappointing. I think it really speaks to some things that Ford needs to do for quality. I think Ford has some quality issues there. I think that is a quality issue, no matter what the PR team and I will come to future arguments over. I can't wait to see them in person someday because I'm sure we're going to have a conversation about that. And the thing is, though, they can tell me what they want to tell me, but I'm a consumer too. It's my truck, damn it. And I'm going to stand my ground because that's not right. You should not buy a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 truck and then have to go buy a $10 can of Rust-Oleum or whatever and cronk and undercoating and call anything, spray your own differential. It's not right. It's not right. I mean, when trucks used to cost $5,000 and they were, throwaway products in the 60s or 80s, whatever, and you knew rust was going to happen, the body was going to rust, that's fine. But today, trucks have become so expensive and they have just changed so much that rust is normal argument needs to go away. It needs to go in the past. It just does. All right. I think that's off my soapbox. I think I should get down to
I know, I'm like, let's take the soapbox and put it away.
Right? Buy a lift, guys. Yeah, I I've thought about buying a lift now or finding a shop to do it, and so yeah, it's pretty interesting. All right, I think that's it for tonight. Any final thoughts there, Jill?
No. My final thought is my husband is cooking me dinner. So thank you for doing this late on a Wednesday night so that I can give him KP.
Ah, yes. Unless you have to punt because he fell asleep or something.
No, I heard him moving out there. So I know he's actually been cooking.
All right, sounds good. Hey, thanks for joining us, and make sure if you're listening on a podcast, let me know some feedback. I've been toying around with that idea, different changes. I'm always doing different changes on the channel, and there's a poll right now about Mysterious Mondays. Make sure you sign that poll. Kind of interesting concept. May bring back feedback. Also, you see the website down below, and Jill does great work over there, and I occasionally submit something when I feel like it. So that's what's going on. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We will see you down the road.